Hello, this is Morteza Kordi, and in this tutorial we are going to add number 8 to our horizontal linear layout here. So let's go back to Android Studio, and here inside this palette section, click on images, and let's add an image button here into this linear layout horizontal, and beside this number 7 here. So let's search for the number 8. So just select it and then press on OK. Now we have this image button here, but as you can see, this number 8 is not appearing here. So let's select this image button, and here for the layout weight, you can see that the layout weight is number 1. Let's delete this value, and now the layout weight is wrap content. So let's find the src attribute, and let's again search for the number 8. Okay, just select this image here, and then choose the image. So it's very important. Let me actually delete it, and one more time let me show you what's the error. Here I'm going to add the image button here inside this linear layout horizontal, and I just searched for number 8, and because I didn't select number 8, it couldn't find the image. It's very important that you select the image and then click on OK, so that the image is here. But as you can see, again, the problem occurred here. Maybe this is a bug. So again, we need to find the src attribute and then click on this ellipsis button. Let's search for the number 8. So just double click on this number 8, and now the image is appearing here. So again, here you can see that the layout width is wrap content. So the layout weight is number 1. So let's delete number 1 here and then press on enter key on your keyboard. Again, for the number 7, the layout weight there is no value for the layout weight, and the layout width is wrap content, right? So I'll talk more about layout weight later. For now, let's just add the components to our linear layout horizontal. So let me show you the emulator, and let me actually show you this calculator. So number 7, 8, 9, and another operator here. So let's go back to Android Studio. Let's add number 9. So again, let's add another image button into this linear layout horizontal. Let's search for the number 9. Just select it. Just double click on it. Again, it couldn't actually find the image. So I'm gonna just click on this ellipsis button and search for the number 9. And again, I'm gonna select it. So now that we have the number 9 here, the layout width, let's delete this value, and for the layout width, we can see the value is wrap content. And finally, we need to add an operator. I want to add, so here you can see that we have this divide operator. I want to add the plus operator or the add operator. So let's go back to Android Studio. Let's add an image button into our linear layout horizontal here, and let's search for the add operator here, or let's search for the plus. Excuse me, our image is named plus, and then click on. So just double click on this image. So again, we need to find it again. I don't know, maybe this is a bug in Android Studio. So here, let's delete the layout weight, which is actually number 1, and then press an enter key on your keyboard. The layout width is wrap content, and the layout height is also wrap content. So here, you can see these components are actually placed here, but I want to make sure that these components are always the same, are always taking the same space that they require. So now, let's select all of these components. So inside this componentry section, it's easier to select all of these image buttons. If you are using a Mac, you can just hold down the command key and then select all of these image buttons. And if you are a Windows user, you just need to hold down the control key and then select all of these image buttons. Now you can see that the layout width of all these image buttons is actually wrap content. Here at the left and the right hand side, these attributes, you can see the attributes that are shared with all of these image buttons. So for the layout width, we can say that the layout width is 0, okay? But here we have the layout weight. Assume that the width of the linear layout horizontal is actually divided into 4 parts. Okay, so we have one part for the number 7, one part for the number 8, one part for the number 9, and another part for the plus operator or the add operator. And I want each part to have one image button, right? This means that we can say that the layout weight of all of these image buttons should be number 1. Each of these image buttons should take one part. So we can say number 1 as the layout weight of all of these image buttons. As you can see, now all of them are appearing here. But for this plus operator here, I want to increase the height of this image button. So for the layout weight, so for the layout height, excuse me, we can say match parent. And here you can see that we have this one. But I think for this plus operator, it's better to use an image view instead of an image button. So let's delete this one. Let me actually select this one, this plus operator here, this image button, and then press and delete key on your keyboard. And here, let's add an image view into our linear layout horizontal. So just put it here. As you can see now, I am putting it inside this component tree section because it's difficult to put it here. And so I'm going to put it inside this component tree section. And these lines are actually guiding me in order to specify where I exactly want to put this image view. So I want to put it inside this linear layout horizontal and below all of these image buttons. So let's search for the plus sign. And here, so we have this actually image view here. So the layout height of this actually plus sign is wrap content. So let's change it to match parent so that everything works fine. As you can see now, it's much more beautiful and we can see it better. We have number 7, 8, 9, and this image view. So make sure that you set the layout height of this image view to match parent, because if you set it to wrap content, the layout is going to be changed because this is an image view and other components are actually image buttons. And because we are adding this image view as the last component here, these other image buttons may have actually some changes to the layout height. So we are going to set the layout height of this image view to match parent. Match parent says that the height of this image view to be the same as the height of the linear layout horizontal. So because, for example, we have number 7, number 8, and 9, these image buttons are actually set, again, the height is set as match parent. Here, you can see if I select all of these image buttons, you can see that they are actually taking some space here as the height, and it's much more visible in this way. If you want to, you can specify a hard-coded value, for example, number 50, 80, 10, 100. For example, let's select all of these components inside this linear layout horizontal, number 7, 8, 9, and this plus sign. And let's say, for example, number 100 as the height. Okay, it doesn't really matter. Or we can actually set another value, for example, number 50. Number 50 is not good, or we can say number 100. So now that we put all of these components inside our linear layout horizontal, we can change the background color of this linear layout horizontal to default value. So just select this linear layout horizontal inside this component tree section and then click on view all attributes. And for the background attribute value here, just delete this value and then press and enter key on your keyboard. So now let's add another linear layout horizontal into our linear layout vertical here. So inside this component tree section, let me close this linear layout horizontal. And here, let's add another linear layout horizontal. So just click on these layouts here and select this linear layout horizontal and put it here inside this component tree section. Inside this linear layout vertical, as you can see here, I want to put it inside this linear layout vertical, but below this linear layout horizontal here. So now just select it And for the layout height, let's change it to wrap content. And here we can say, we need to add some components here. So inside these images here, inside this palette section, just click on images. Let's add an image button into this linear layout horizontal. So here we need to, let me show you the emulator. So we need to add number 4, 5, 6, and an operator here. So here we need to search for the number 4. So just double click on it in order to select it. And here, just select this image button, and you can see the layout width is wrap content and the layout height is wrap content. So let me click on this icon in order to see less attributes here. So we can see that the layout weight is number 1. Okay, so let's delete this value and then press an enter key on our keyboard so that it is placed on a proper position inside this linear layout horizontal. Now let's add another image button into our linear layout horizontal. Again, I want to put it beside this number 4 here. So put it here, and now we want to have number 5. So just double click on it in order to select it. Again, it couldn't find it, and we need to find it again. So we have number 5, and we need to delete the value of this layout weight and then press an enter key on your keyboard. Again, we need to add number 6. So number 6, and the layout weight is going to be nothing. And finally, we need to add an operator. So I want to add the minus operator here. So I'm gonna actually select image view instead of an image button. So just drag this image view here beside this number 6 here, and let's search for minus or subtract, and then click on OK. So again, it couldn't find it. We need to search it again. So here it is, our minus operator. But again, we need to change the layout weight of all of these components here. So inside this components tree section, just select all of these components here. You can hold down the shift key and then select all of them. And for the layout weight, let's add number 1 here. So here, for this image view, I'm gonna set the layout height to let's change the height of all of these components to 100. So let's say that we have 100 as the layout height, but we forgot to do another thing. We need to set the layout width of all of these components to 0. So select all of them, and then for the layout width, assign the value 0 here. Okay, the same as the image buttons and the image view above. So now everything works fine, right? Now we need to actually, let me show you the emulator. So we need to have number 1, 2, 3, and then another operator. So let me close these two linear layout horizontal. So here you can see these layouts inside this component tree section. So inside this palette section, just click on layouts, and we need to have another linear layout horizontal. So just put it here. I want to put it inside this linear layout vertical, but below these other linear layout horizontal. So I need to actually just play with it a little bit so that it can find where I exactly want to put it here. Or if you want to, you can just put it here, but it's really hard to just put it inside this layout by using the screen. So I'm gonna actually use this component tree and then put it here. So let's select this linear layout horizontal, and for the layout height, let's change it to wrap content. And here, let's add an image button to this linear layout horizontal. So let's find the images and then click on image button and then drag an image button into our linear layout horizontal. So now we need to add number 1. So let's search for the number 1. So here it is, the number 1, and for the layout weight, assign the nothing, and we need to have another image button here beside this number 1. Number 2, Again, select this number 2 and for the layout weight, just delete this value. Another image button here beside this number 2 here. So we need to have number 3. So again, it couldn't find it. I need to select it again. And here again for the layout weight, just delete this value. And here I'm gonna actually just let me show you the emulator. So here we have a plus, minus, and for the operator I'm gonna use the multiply operator. So here let's add an image view. So just drag an image view into our linear layout horizontal beside this number 3, and let's search for the multiply operator and select it. So again, it couldn't find it. Multiply, and here so now I'm gonna select all of these. Let's go back to the design tab. I'm gonna select all of these components, number 2, number 1, number 2, number 3, and this multiply operator here inside this componentry section. So I'm gonna set the layout width to 0 and the layout weight to number 1. Okay, and I'm gonna set the layout height of all of these components to 100. Okay, so now that's nice, but you can see that we cannot have another, for example, another linear layout horizontal here. We could add it inside our linear layout horizontal, and it's gonna actually create a scroll view automatically for us, for the user actually. But I want to see all of them here in one place. I don't want the user to scroll. So we need to do something else. We need to actually decrease the height of our image buttons and our image views. So we can do that, because if I select this linear layout horizontal, you can see that the layout height is wrap content. So the layout height of all of these linear layouts are actually wrap content, and also this one, this linear layout vertical, the layout height is hard-coded for this linear layout vertical that contains all of this linear layout horizontal. So we can actually set the linear layout height of this linear layout vertical to, for example, number 200, right? Or maybe 300. But I think it's good to be 200, I think, or 250. No, 200 is good. So now, as you can see, nothing is actually other components. For example, image button for the number 1, 2, 3, and the multiply operator. We cannot see them. So we need to do something else. We need to say that this linear layout vertical, to be the layout height to be wrap content, right? And we can actually select all of these image buttons and these image views. So here, this is very important. Make sure that you only select these image buttons and these image views, not any other linear layouts. So we have this one, image button number 7. So only select the image buttons and the image views. Do not select any other, for example, layouts. Let me select all of them. And here, for the layout height, we can say number 80 to be the layout height, or we can actually change it to number 70. And 75 is good. Yes, 75 is good. So now we can add another linear layout horizontal into our linear layout vertical. So let me just close all of these linear layouts here. Now inside this palette section, just click on this layouts, and let's add another linear layout horizontal into our linear layout vertical, and below these other linear layouts. So just put it here and just select it, and for the layout height, let's select wrapped content. Now let's add an image button into our linear layout horizontal. So just select this image button and just add it here into this linear layout horizontal. So let me show you the emulator. So we need to add number, we need to have, we have this clear button, this 0, and another operator here. So we can actually say, we can search for the clear. I think we don't have the clear image button, so we don't have to have an image view, but we can actually find, no, we don't have to have an image button here. So let's click on cancel, and let's add a button into our linear layout horizontal. So inside this palette section, click on all and then select this button and put it inside this linear layout horizontal. So now let's select this button here, and let's delete this value of this layout weight and then press an enter key on our keyboard. So you can see that the layout width and the layout height of our button is wrap content, right? So now let's change the text of this button to, for example, C. We're going to increase the size of the text of this button later, and here we are going to add an image button for the number 0. So inside this palette section, click on images, image button, and then just put it here beside this linear layout, beside this see this clear button, and inside this linear layout horizontal. So let me make sure that I actually put it in the proper position. So here, let me search for the number 0. So again, it couldn't find it, and I'm gonna search it again. So now we have this number 0 here, and for the layout weight, I'm gonna delete this value. So right, and the image button, so let's change the layout height of this image button to 75, or maybe let's see what is the height of these other image buttons. So it's going to be fixed later. For now, let's just use it this way. And then we need to have another operator, right? We need to have the divide operator. So we are going to add an image view here. So let's search for the divide operator. And here, let's delete this layout weight. You can see that the layout width and the layout height is wrap content. So that's good. Okay. So now I'm going to actually say that I'm going to specify the layout weight of these components inside this linear layout horizontal. But we have only 3 components, not 4. So one component should take 2 parts. Okay, we have 4 parts, but we only have 3 components. But only one of these components can take 2 parts, and it must actually, because our layout is going to be disorganized. So we can say that this button, this clear button, let's change the height of this clear button to 75 first. Now we can say that the layout width of this clear button is going to be 0, but the layout height is going to be 2. Okay, and let's select this 0 button. So for the layout width, let's actually assign the value 0 for this 0 button, but for the layout weight, we can say number 1. And for this divide image view, for the layout height, let's say that it is 75, and for the layout width it is 0, but the layout weight is number 1. Now we can see that everything is working fine, and you can see that the layout weight of this button is 2. It is taking 2 parts. Okay, I told you that assume that the layout width of our linear layout horizontal is going to be 4 parts. Is going to contain 4 parts, and we have 3 components. So one of them should take 2 parts, and the others can take 1 part each. So now let's select this clear button, and let's increase the text size of this clear button. So let's click on view all attributes, and let's search for the text size attribute here. So here it is the text size, and we can say, for example, number 50, or we could actually change it to number 70, or maybe number 40, or maybe number 45. I think number 45 is good. Okay, so that's it. This is our layout, and now we can change the background color of our linear layout vertical that contains all of these linear layouts here, horizontal. So let's select this linear layout vertical that contains these linear layouts here, horizontal, these horizontal linear layouts. And for the background attribute, let's delete this value and then press an enter key on our keyboard. So I think that's beautiful. But we could also change the background color of our image buttons. So for example, let's see that. Let's say that, for example, I want the background color of this number 7 image button to be FFF white. I think it's good. It's beautiful. Let's actually set the background color of all of these image buttons to be white. So select all of them. So here, let me point out that you should only, or in other words, you must only select these image buttons, okay? Because we want to only change the background color of these image buttons and this button. So select this image button here. So we already changed the background color of this number 7. So I'm gonna select number 8 and this one. So I'm gonna select this, I'm gonna open this linear layout horizontal, and number 4, 5, 6, and this one, number 1, 2, 3, and we have this button and this 0, okay? And here, let's actually, for the background attribute, just put hashtag FFF and then press an enter key on your keyboard. So I think it's now good, okay? For these image views, for example, let's select this plus button here, this plus sign, and let's say that I want the background color to be white. It changed. So let's select all of these image views also. So here, select them. Inside this layout, if I want to select all of them, I think I should only select, hold down the shift key on my keyboard in order to select them. Because if I hold down the command key, it's gonna switch to the text tab. And for the background attribute here, we can say hashtag FFF. I think it's now much more beautiful. So let's run the app. And let's see that everything works fine. So it's good. And here we could add the plus sign. So let's go back to Android Studio. And here inside this componentry section, so just select this linear layout vertical that contains all of these buttons and these operators. So I'm gonna increase the top margin. So let's see less attributes here, and let's change number 10 to number 15. If I run the app now, let's see what happens. So I think that's good. So finally, we are going to add the equal image to our layout here. So inside this palette section, just click on images, and then we have this image view. Just drag it here into our layout here. Just put it here. You can see this space here. That's why I created this top margin for this linear layout vertical. Just put it inside this empty space, and let's select this equal image and then click on OK. So here, because this is actually a constraint layout, remember I told you that turn this auto connect feature off because we wanted to add the constraints manually. But here for this equal image, we want to get help from this auto connect feature. The auto connect feature is going to help us. In other words, it's gonna automatically create constraints for our specific component according to how we want to position it inside our layout. So just turn on this feature now and select this image here, this equal image, and for the layout width, assign the value number 50, and for the layout height, assign the value number 50. and then press and enter key on your keyboard. So now let's just change the place of this equal image. So I want this image to be between number 8 and number 9, just here. So now as you can see, some constraints automatically created for this image here, right? The left constraint and the right constraint. So now I'm gonna run the app, just run the app and then click on OK. Let me show you the emulator. As you can see, it's gonna actually showing us an error, and it says that number 50 alone is not allowed, so we need to change it to DP. Before it actually puts these DP for us automatically, but now we need to actually put it manually. So here you can see that our image, this equal image, is now at the top because we only created the left constraint and the left constraint and the right constraint. So we need to have also the top constraint. So just click on this little circle here at the top, this little circle that is pulsating, and I'm going to create a constraint to the bottom edge of this linear layout vertical that contains this text view that is going to show us the result. So I'm gonna just create a constraint. I'm gonna just drag a constraint to the bottom edge of this. As you can see, it's kind of tricky, but we can actually select it here. To the bottom edge of this linear layout vertical. Now you can see that it is actually red. I'm gonna just release it here, and a constraint is the top edge of this image, this equal image, is actually connected to the bottom edge of this linear layout vertical. So now this bottom edge of this equal image, I'm going to connect this bottom edge to the top edge of this linear layout vertical that contains these numbers and these operators. So just you can see this little circle that is pulsating. Just select it and just drag a connection to the bottom edge of this. So it's kind of tricky, but we need to do it here to the top edge of this linear layout vertical here. So you can see this connection is now created. This bottom, this top edge, this bottom edge, left and right. So here we can change, because we already just turned on this autoconnect feature. We can change the place of this image here, or we can actually let's just put it a little bit to the right. Let's select it and then let's put it here, or we can just put it here. It doesn't really matter where you put it, but you can just change it if you want. I think that's good. Now let's run the app. Let me show you the emulator. So now again, it's showing us an error, and that's because maybe, oh, okay, I think we need to put the DP here again for the layout width and the layout height. So I'm gonna run the app again. It may have erased, and also the emulator is actually restarted. I don't know why. So now as you can see, the app is running on the simulator and everything works fine. We have this image, this equal image here, and we successfully created the layout of our calculator application. So that's enough for this tutorial. In the next tutorial, we are going to code the app. Thank you very much for watching. If you have any questions about these concepts that you've learned so far, please post a discussion in the course, and I will do my best to answer all of your questions. Thank you very much for watching again, and I look forward to seeing you in the next tutorial.